The headline blazed across every California newspaper. "Billionaire's fiancé admits, I was in it for the money." Ethan Hargrave slammed his tablet onto the marble table hard enough to slosh his coffee. At 32, he had built an empire, flipped startups into tech giants, and conquered everything money could buy. Everything, it seemed, except something real. "Everyone only sees my last name," he said into the phone, his voice carrying an exhaustion that went beyond his body. "Not me. Never me, Marcus." On the other end of the line, his best friend sighed. "Then disappear for a while. Vanish. Just be you." The idea germinated in his mind like a rebellious seed. 3 days later, Ethan Hargrave ceased to exist. The perfectly tailored hair was dyed a darker brown and left to grow slightly messy. A light beard covered his angular face. Simple black-rimmed glasses replaced his contacts. Designer clothes gave way to faded jeans and comfortable t-shirts. In the mirror, a stranger stared back. "Evan Hale," he murmured, trying the name out. "Pleased to meet you." Willow Creek was exactly the kind of place he needed. A tiny town nestled among rolling hills, where the biggest event of the week was church bingo. Where no one knew Ethan Hargrave, and where Evan Hale could simply exist. The house he rented was modest, with wooden porches that creaked underfoot and a garden that needed attention. It was perfect. For the first time in years, Evan, felt something akin to peace. The next morning, he found the local coffee shop, a cozy spot called the Dawn Nook, with lace curtains in the windows and the aroma of fresh coffee floating in the air. That's when he saw her. She was behind the counter, brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail, a few stray strands framing a delicate face. When she smiled at an elderly customer, something in Evan's chest tightened. There was a light in that smile, a genuineness he hadn't seen in so long he'd almost forgotten what it felt like. "Hi there. Welcome to the Nook," she said when it was his turn, her voice having the warm quality of melted honey. "First time in?" "Just moved to town," Evan replied, and realized he was genuinely smiling. "I'm Evan. Lily." She extended her hand, and when their fingers touched, a spark of recognition passed between them. Something old and new all at once. "Lily Morgan. What can I get for you?" They talked while she made his coffee, an easy, natural conversation about the town, the weather, the best hiking trails. But there was something deeper there, an undercurrent of connection Evan couldn't name. When she spoke about literature, she quoted authors he adored. When she mentioned international politics in passing, she displayed a surprisingly sophisticated understanding. "You're a lot more than you seem," he said without thinking. Lily paused, a strange expression crossing her face for a moment. "Aren't we all?" she replied softly. Evan came back the next day, and the day after that. Each visit stretched a little longer. Each conversation deepened. Lily was funny, smart, compassionate. She truly listened to him, not just waiting for her turn to speak. When he told vague stories about his previous life, she didn't press for details. There was a respect there, a safe space. A week turned into 2, then 3. Evan found himself making excuses to see her. A stroll through the town park became a Saturday tradition. Simple dinners at small restaurants, endless conversations under the starry sky, where she pointed out constellations, and he got lost in the brightness of her eyes. "Have you ever had your heart broken?" he asked one night, as they walked along the river that cut through the town. Lily was silent for a long moment. "Yes," she finally said. "A few years ago, I met someone I thought might be special. But he thought I wanted something from him that wasn't true. He never gave me a chance to prove otherwise." There was a pain in her voice that echoed his own. "And you?" she asked. "Every time," Evan admitted. "But I'm starting to think maybe I never truly let anyone know me. How could they love me if I never showed them who I really am?" Lily stopped walking and turned to him. In the moonlight, she looked ethereal, like something out of a dream. "Then show them," she said softly. "Show them the real you." And right there, On the banks of that river, Evan kissed her for the first time. It was soft and urgent all at once, full of unspoken promises and fragile hopes. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling like teenagers. The days blurred into a happy haze. Evan didn't know it was possible to feel so light, so free. For the first time in as long as he could remember, he wasn't constantly calculating angles, assessing intentions. With Lily, he just was. She took him to local festivals where they danced to amateur bands. They cooked together in her tiny kitchen, making a mess and laughing like children. She introduced him to her favorite spots: the secret overlook view of the valley, the dusty old bookstore with hidden first editions, the forest trail where deer appeared at dawn. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," Evan said one afternoon, as they lay on a blanket in the park, watching the clouds. "Different how?" Lily turned to him, propping her head up on her hand. "Real," he answered simply. "You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not wearing any masks." Something dark crossed her face, but it was gone so fast he thought he'd imagined it. "We all wear masks, Evan," she said softly. "The question is, are we willing to take them off?" That night, Evan realized something that filled him simultaneously with joy and terror. He was in love. Deeply, irrevocably in love. And for the first time, he believed he was loved for who he was, not what he owned. But the universe, as it often does, had other plans. It all fell apart on a Tuesday afternoon. Evan had gone to Lily's apartment to pick her up for dinner. The door was ajar, and he walked in, calling her name. No answer. Her purse was open on the living room table, and an envelope had fallen to the floor. Evan bent down to pick it up, with no intention of invading her privacy. But what he saw froze him in place. They were newspaper clippings. Of him. Ethan Hargrave at gala events, on the covers of business magazines, announcing his failed engagement. There were also printed photos, images that could only have been obtained through deliberate research, and handwritten notes, details about his life no one should know. His hands were shaking as he flipped through the folder. Everything was there, his whole life, catalogued and studied. The floor seemed to disappear beneath his feet. "Evan?" He turned around. Lily was in the doorway, shopping bags in her hands, her face paling as she saw what he was holding. "Who are you?" His voice came out a raspy whisper. "Evan, I can explain." "Who are you?" he repeated, louder now, the betrayal burning in his throat like acid. The shopping bags dropped to the floor. Lily, or whoever she was, closed her eyes. "Tell me your name," Evan pleaded, and there was a pain so profound in his voice that she flinched. "Your real name." "My name isn't Lily," she finally said, opening her eyes. There were tears in them. "It's Lena. Lena Mitchell." Something about that name resonated in his memory, but he was too shocked to process it. "You planned this whole thing," he said, the realization hitting him like a punch. "From the first day. You knew who I was." "Yes," she admitted, and every syllable was like a knife blade. "But not for the reason you think." "The reason I think?" Evan laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You investigated me. You followed me. You set up this whole charade. Just like her. Just like all of them." He took off his glasses with trembling hands, the fake beard he wore to conceal his true appearance sliding as he ran his hands over his face in desperation. "I'm not who you think I am either," he said, his voice cracking. "My name is Ethan Hargrave." It was Lena's turn to be paralyzed, the shock evident in her features. You changed everything. I didn't know you." "We're in disguise," he finished bitterly. "Apparently we both were." "Ethan, please, let me explain." Lena took a step forward, but he backed away. "We met before. 4 years ago, at a charity event in San Francisco. We talked all night. There was a connection, I felt it. But then you never reached out again. Later I found out you thought I was only interested in your money, your position." The memory hit him like a wave. A woman in a green dress, musical laughter, conversation that made him lose track of time. He had pulled away because his assistant had warned him that she seemed too interested, that she was asking too many questions. "I spent years trying to forget you," Lena continued, the tears flowing freely now. "But I couldn't. When I heard you had moved here, that you were trying to escape everything, I thought maybe, just maybe, if I could prove I liked you regardless of titles or money." "So you lied?" Ethan interrupted. "Created a false identity? Manipulated me?" "I fell in love with you," she cried, her voice breaking. "With the man you are, not what you have. Every moment, every conversation, every kiss. It was all real. My feelings are real. How can I believe you?" Ethan ran his hands through his hair, feeling like he was drowning. How can I believe anything when it was all built on lies? The silence that followed was deafening. "You can't," Lena finally said, her voice small. "I understand." Ethan grabbed his jacket and walked to the door. Every step hurt, as if he were leaving a part of himself behind. "Goodbye, Lena." He didn't look back. The following weeks were a blur of pain. Ethan returned to California, to his empty mansion and his even emptier life. He tried to immerse himself in work, but everything felt meaningless. At night, he dreamed of her, of that smile, of the way she said his name. Evan, not Ethan, Evan. She had loved Evan. The simple man who drank coffee in a small shop, the man who walked barefoot in the grass, the man who laughed without worrying about who was watching. But Evan didn't exist. He was just another mask. Or was he? A month after leaving Willow Creek, Ethan was in his office when Marcus walked in unannounced. "You need to see this," he said, turning on the television. It was a financial news report, and there, in an elegant gray suit, confident posture and professional smile, was her. Lena Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Holdings, announced today a groundbreaking partnership that promises to revolutionize the sustainable energy sector. Ethan sat down slowly, the world spinning around him. "Mitchell Holdings," he whispered. Marcus nodded. "One of the most valuable private companies in the country. She's a billionaire, Ethan. She inherited her father's business and multiplied it tenfold. She's one of the most powerful women in the industry." The remote control fell from his hand. She never wanted my money," he murmured. "She never needed it." The realization hit him like a tsunami. She had created a disguise not to exploit him, but to protect herself, to prove a point, to have a chance at real love in a world where they were both defined by their fortunes. And he had destroyed everything. "I'm an idiot," he said, burying his face in his hands. "Yes," Marcus agreed without hesitation, "but there's still time to fix it." Ethan took the first flight to New York. It took 3 days of persistent calls for Lena's assistant to finally agree to pass along his request for an audience. The answer was cold. 15 minutes, nothing more. When he walked into her office atop a Manhattan skyscraper, he barely recognized her. This was Lena Mitchell, business magnate, not Lily Morgan, coffee shop attendant. But when she lifted her eyes, he saw the same woman, the same pain. 14 minutes, she said, looking at the clock. "I was wrong," Ethan began, the words tumbling out in a rush. "About everything. I let my past poison something precious. I let fear blind me to the truth. The truth is you never trusted me," Lena said, her voice controlled, but trembling at the edges. "Even when I gave you all of me, you chose to believe the worst." "Because I was broken," he admitted. And for the first time in his adult life, Ethan Hargrave cried in front of another person. "So broken that I couldn't recognize something real when it was right in front of me." Lena stood up, turning to the window, but he saw her shoulders shake. "I loved you," she said softly. "I loved the man you were with me. But you never gave me the benefit of the doubt. Not a single chance to explain." "I know." Ethan moved closer, but kept his distance. "And I'll carry that regret forever. But I didn't come here to ask for another chance. I came to ask for your forgiveness. You deserved better. You deserve better." Lena turned around, tears streaming down her face that she didn't try to hide. "Why now? Because you found out I'm rich?" "Because I realized it doesn't matter who you are," he said fervently. "Lily, Lena, CEO, coffee shop attendant. You are the person who made me feel alive for the first time in years. The person who loved the best and the worst parts of me. And I lost you because I was too much of a coward to believe I deserved that love." The silence stretched between them, full of everything that was and everything that could have been. "Your time is up," Lena finally said, but her voice was gentle. Ethan nodded and walked to the door. With his hand on the knob, he paused. "For what it's worth," he said without turning around. "Evan was real. He was me without the defenses. And he loved you. He still does." The door closed softly behind him. The following weeks were torture. Ethan returned to work, but his heart wasn't in it. He found himself looking at his phone, typing messages he never sent. He woke up in the middle of the night, the taste of bitter regret in his mouth. A month later, he flew to Chicago for a tech conference. It was the kind of event he usually avoided, but Marcus insisted he needed to get back into the world. He agreed just to have something to focus on besides the constant ache. When he walked into the hotel lobby, she was there. Lena was standing near the front desk, elegant in a navy blue dress, talking to someone. And then, as if sensing his gaze, she turned. Their eyes met across the busy lobby, and the world stopped. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly, Ethan smiled. It was a sad, hopeful smile, full of longing. Lena blinked, surprised. And then, like the sun coming out after a storm, she smiled back. He walked over to her, his heart pounding so hard he thought everyone in the lobby must be able to hear it. "Hi," he said when they were face to face. "Hi," she replied. "Are you here for the conference?" "I'm one of the speakers." "Me too." They laughed, a nervous, wonderful sound. "Do you have time for coffee?" Ethan asked, and there was so much weight in those simple words. Lena hesitated, and he saw the war in her eyes. Fear versus hope. Pain versus possibility. "Just coffee," she finally said. "Nothing more." "Just coffee," he agreed. But just coffee turned into 3 intense hours of conversation at a hidden cafe away from the hotel. Real conversation, without Lily or Evan, without masks or pretense. They talked about their childhoods, about the loneliness of always being seen as dollar signs and not as people, about the disguises they created and the truths they concealed. "I should have trusted you," Ethan said, holding his coffee cup like an anchor. "But I spent so long being used that I forgot how to recognize something genuine." "I should have been honest from the start," Lena admitted. "But I was so afraid you'd reject me again that I preferred to live in the fantasy a little longer." "We were 2 scared idiots trying to protect ourselves," he said with a half smile. "We were," she agreed, and there was tenderness in her voice now. The sun was setting when they finally left the cafe. They walked the streets of Chicago aimlessly, just enjoying each other's company. "Can I try again?" Ethan asked when they stopped on a bridge over the river. Not as Evan or Ethan, just as me. The man who makes mistakes, who is afraid, but who is trying to be better. Lena looked at him for a long moment, and he saw tears glistening in her eyes. "Can I try to believe again?" she asked back. "That maybe this time we can be honest, vulnerable, real." "We can try together," he said softly, taking her hand. She didn't pull away. "Slowly," she said, "with patience, with truth. All the time in the world," he promised. And there, on the bridge, with the city lighting up around them, Ethan kissed Lena for the first time as themselves. No disguises, no lies. Just 2 wounded hearts choosing to be brave again. It wasn't an instant fairy tale ending. There were difficult conversations, tears, moments of doubt. But they persisted. Ethan flew to New York every week. Lena went to California whenever she could. They learned to trust again, one day at a time. 3 months later, Ethan took Lena back to Willow Creek. They walked the same places where Evan and Lily fell in love, but this time as Ethan and Lena. And it was even better. "Do you think we would have gotten here if we hadn't hidden first?" Lena asked, as they sat on the banks of the river where they had shared their first kiss. Ethan thought about it. "Maybe we needed the masks to learn how to take them off," he said. "Evan taught me I could be loved for who I am. Lily showed you could be vulnerable. Now it's just us." "Just us," she repeated, resting her head on his shoulder. "I think I like that." "Me too," he kissed the top of her head. "Me too." The masks had fallen. And there, finally free from the armor they had built, they found the love that was always theirs. Not because they were perfect, but because they chose to be imperfect together. Not despite their wounds, but through their courage to heal. And in that small patch of paradise called Willow Creek, under the same stars that witnessed their beginning, Ethan and Lena started not an end, but a real beginning.